Good Wednesday morning, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. A pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network, where we have an audience that's every social media platform possible. Today is the post-election, I guess we can say that, version of Real Talk. There's a number of seats still to be determined, and the Senate is very much up for grabs. We'll talk elections from a Commonwealth, from a Senate standpoint, and across the board as we try to make some sense of it all.
And maybe what it means or what it doesn't mean. Housing.
That's how I think we should do. You hear Keith Smith's voice right there.
Sorry.
Judah Wickower is our director, and it's the Wednesday edition of the show. My friend, how was the election night?
You would think with us coming up to 400 shows, I would know not to interrupt you when you're doing it. I'm a little slow.
You're fantastic. I think the evening, we kid or we joked about this before the show started. There was a time when elections were determined on election day.
So, you know the whole rule about jokes, right?
What's that?
They always got a little bit of truth in them.
Yeah.
So maybe not so much a joke. I was up until wee hours of the morning watching it. I may or may not have taken a nap in the middle of it and then woke up and watched it for a little bit of while. But I haven't checked it, frankly, since this morning. My feet hit the ground this morning, and we've been rocking and rolling all morning long. Opened up houses for appraisers and all that fun stuff. So
your business is humming.
Yeah, thank the Lord. We're doing good. We're doing well.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, talk about the market. We'll get to the election.
That's interesting because I think we tapped a little bit into that on Monday, which was a really dynamic show, by the way. If you haven't had an opportunity to watch it or listen to it yet, go back and realtalkwithkeithsmith.com.
That's right.
And go ahead and take a look at it, because it was a very dynamic conversation from different perspectives, and the engagement from the folks in the feed was to use your quote, was on fire. But yeah, so it's I think one of the questions was asked on Monday is, how do you, as a real estate agent or somebody in our industry anyway, kind of deal with this shift? And it's the three things I've always been talking about: be professional, be trustworthy, and be caring, and the rest will take care of itself. Always strive to increase your professionalism, always care about the other person, and be trustworthy.
Let's talk about the election. Last night and housing. Where do you want to start with the election?
Yeah, is it over?
No, it's not over. Unfortunately, it's not over.
Yeah, so
the House is looking like it's.
I almost feel like we can't talk about it because it's not over yet, right?
Senate's to be determined. Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, has the House been called? Has anybody called the House other than?
Depending on who you ask, the GOP is saying it's red. It certainly has not been made. It's not official, as a number of seats are still, from a vote count by the letter of the law, undetermined.
Well,
we're in flux.
Yeah, we were just a follow-up for our conversation with Jesse Rutherford, and a little bit of a chat before we went live in our pre-production meeting. That was all about 30 seconds. This is not a wave. This is not a tsunami.
Kevin Yancey calls it right now he uses your phrase, trickle.
Yeah, so
a trickle. That's what you said.
Yeah, So actually, trickle is on, but more like a splash, right? A ripple, right? When a pebble,
bubbling brook.
When a pebble drops in a clear glass of flat water, it kind of ripples along. So it's a ripple. Look, the short answer of it is, from my perspective, for what it's worth, I think it's going to be more of the same. I don't think there's going to be enough of a swing to either side for it to change. So I think we're going to kind of be stuck with what we've had for the last 2 years, for the next 2 years. And the question is there an impact, of any, on housing, right? I think
Gridlock government generally good for the stock market. Stock market generally good for consumer confidence.
Well, I think if the Republicans take the House, and look, we don't choose sides, right?
Yeah.
Right. Our three rules is no divisive politics, no pointing fingers, and have fun, right? But my personal hope is that they just focus on what they need to do to fix inflation, not start pointing fingers at the other side, right? I hope they take some of our three rules here on Real Talk and apply it to government on that end of it. And if they do, then I think we have the chance of kind of moving in the right direction as far as inflation goes and housing and so forth and so on. But, I think if the Republicans take care of the House, this is something we haven't talked about in a while, but this $15,000 first-time home buyer credit, that's pretty much off the table, I think, if this projection is true, that they take the...
You see a lot of that?
Take the House. Excuse me?
Did you see a lot of that?
Well, it's never been approved yet, right? So that's the thing. It's out there. It's a first time. Now, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because that could help folks
close the gap.
Well, it can help down payment assistance, right? And close
with baby boomers.
Correct, with baby boomers, but I don't really think that much is going to change. I think we're going to hunker back down, and all of a sudden, 2 days from now, or maybe even today, start talking about 2024, and we haven't even figured out
2024.
I think the next conversation. I think all of a sudden the conversation is all going to be about the election in 24.
Well,
we're not even going to get settled in.
We talked about this briefly in on yesterday's show. Maybe we weave you into a three-shot here if you want to comment or not, Judah. The next thing we're following is in 6 days, which I think is November 15th. Trump said he would make a big announcement.
Yeah.
And, the expectation would be that he tries to make a push for president, right? You would think?
So that's the comment I'm making. I think all of a sudden the narrative is going to go from, okay, what do we need to do to fix inflation? What do we need to do to fix housing? And I'm reading through a couple of articles that I dug out this morning on it, particularly from Market Watch, which is one of my favorite sources of information. Will the federal government get in the middle of trying to clean up some of this red tape? I just pulled up the last 7 days, right? This is what I kind of my Bible, right? The levels and the car footprint. There's 66 homes that came on the market, 78 went pending. I think regardless of what happens, inventory is just going to start shrinking. And as you chat a little bit, I'd love to take a look at this same week a year ago and see what came on live, because I now figured out.
Very nice, yeah. There's a timestamp.
I figured that out, how to do that. Smith is learning.
It's very nice. In the 5th, which we watched closely, Josh Thronberg conceded to...
that was pretty cold really early.
To Bob Good, yes it was. He won handedly. The Senate, it's going to be a while till we know what actually happens in the Senate. Even Kevin Yancey says we won't know until that runoff in Georgia.
So they've already called they're going to do a runoff in Georgia?
Depending on, that's a big one right there. And Walker and Warnock are way too early to call in the Georgia Senate race. That's an important
same week last year. Interesting. I didn't expect to see this number. Same exact week ending today. 70 homes came on the market, 81 went off. This week, 66 came on, so that's pretty close, right? I expected to see a larger number on that, and 78 went pending. So a year, the same week, let me see, what are we looking at with sold? 91.
That's right, Kevin Yancey. You have to pass, he's right, you have to pass the 50% threshold to win. And
In Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yeah.
And the two candidates, it's close, or whether or not they're going to pass 50%.
Yeah.
So a runoff would be December 6th.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a month from now.
Yeah. So it's they've been talking about this, whoever they are, that this is going to be a projected change. We probably won't know until December 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th. How close are they? Like in 49 something, right?
I mean,
remember looking at it before.
Let's see.
He's like Herschel Walker's, I think, at 49 and change, if I remember it correctly this morning. But I found that interesting. You know, we're not that far off in new and pendings versus a year ago. I expected that number to be very different.
I mean, the number one thing here from a housing standpoint and real estate standpoint is how quickly can the government, like you said, get inflation in control so rates can start going down again, or less, or you know, kept from rising again. Because right now, that's their only tool to keep inflation in check.
We're
is
talking about
raising
the Fed.
rates. Yeah. So that's what we all got to be following here. If from a real estate standpoint is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then it depends on what it does with the T-bill and all this kind of great stuff. But you know, I just find that interesting that a year ago we same week, which the rates were clearly not where they are now. Almost the same amount went into pending, which is odd. I really didn't expect that. I expected that pending number to be much higher a year ago. I'm going to go ahead and look at something around June, around April, just to see same week in April what those numbers look like, just real quickly, because I can figure this out now.
We'll follow closely, guys, as the deals that are heading to contract right now likely closing next year, right in that window.
Man, I don't know. We've got a couple of deals on the table that are going to get done. That window shut down a little bit. So we're closer to 30 days. A lot of people are trying to rush to get in the house for the holidays. But yeah, we're gonna, if you're not on the contract by Thanksgiving, the likelihood of it closing by the end of the year is pretty minimal.
Slim.
It's slim to none. So what we are able to do in our office is by the end of November, I know what we're doing for the year because we could project it out, and then kind of start. That's what we're doing now. Set for next year. April, same week, 117 came on, 109 went pending. Same week. So this is kind of going up and down week over week, but that was a bit shocking to me. The big difference is the solds are 65 versus 92. So that's the big difference. There's more units closing.
Juan Sarmiento watching the show. Juan, the king of transportation. He says, hard to believe the Warnock-Walker race is too close to call. If it does not pass the 50% threshold, unfortunately for everyone, the runoff is the 6th of December. So that's a waiting game for all of us. Kevin Higgins, I think the GOP made two major mistakes, using a father of three-stroke as a political tool, and Trump making an announcement about his big announcement on 11/15 right before
Made an
midterms.
announcement for an announcement.
The announcement before the announcement that Trump did was not a good announcement.
And are we surprised?
I know, not surprised at all. What's the word? Is it megalomaniac?
Yeah, it
was the announcement was supposed to be for a candidate.
Look, it's. I think that again, we surely don't want to split sides on the show, right? And the one thing that I've learned from last night is we are definitely split down the middle.
Yeah.
Right. But DeSantis winning in the way he did was kind of huge, and I think that might be a little telltale in going forward. But
bellwether.
But from thank you.
What are you saying? A bellwether for a DeSantis-Youngkin ticket? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say Youngkin. You probably know more about than I do. I'm just saying that maybe DeSantis is becoming the darling of the Republican Party right now.
I think that's definitely, yeah.
But the point of the show is, from a
DeSantis Youngkin ticket would be a tough ticket right there.
That would to beat.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is, you almost, and I'm going to be somewhat cynical here. I don't think the needle, and I hope I am wrong, but I don't think the needle on the inflation is going to move much in the next 18 to 24 months, or the recession in the next 18 to 24 months. I may be wrong. I'm not really sure that if the Republicans won the House and Senate, they could do much about it anyway. I mean, it's just there's so much inflation going out there. What can they do to turn it down a little bit? But anyway, I was hopeful today that we would have a very clear, concise winner, and that we could go ahead and kind of have a conversation about how that's going to impact us moving forward. I think the thing is you keep on engaging with your trusted advisors. Keep it local. I didn't bring my statistics with me, but I wrote it down on a sheet. Roughly about 68% of all this is from the NAR's buyer and seller profile that they come in, and I'm still reading through the 147 pages of it and charts. It's got lots of pictures for us Marines. It makes life easy. That their move was because of life changes, right? And that's not going to change. Life changes aren't going to change. This is getting married, having kids, divorces, Keith and Yonna downsizing to retirement. All these life changes are still going to be there. That's probably why we're seeing numbers the way we're seeing as far as pendings and actives. These changes are happening every day.
We still see a pretty hefty drop in volume. Year over year.
Volume is dropping. I've been running some numbers, but we're roughly 20%.
I mean, sales volume is down. I mean, that's a lot.
But it's interesting, but we were up in 2021 by 20%, down in 2020. This is overall car footprint, down. So we're kind of balancing out a little bit.
So you're saying the comparison of last year is not a fair comparison?
The last 2 years
is not fair.
I don't think this comparison. For the heck of it, I was based on a show on Monday. I just ran Albemarle County single-family detached, no new construction. That's kind of my thing. I've got to take that out because it's a very different set of numbers, which I'm going to do. And I ran 21 years of median sales price. And over 21 years, the median, the average appreciation year over year is 4.67. But in 20 years, there was only 4 years, year over year now, only 4 years we actually went negative. It was 2013 to 14 by 10%, 2010 and 11 by 11%, 2008 and 9 by 9%, and 2007 and 8 by 3%. So this average takes in those negative numbers into it. So it's been a long time since we've seen, at least in Albemarle County, any negative appreciation. You'd have to go back to 13 and 14 to go ahead and see that. I've been saying this all along. I think we're going to be seeing about a 3% year over year increase, maybe 4%, somewhere in that, kind of closer to the average that's been going on. So if you buy now, you're going to have to stay in your home for a few years to make up the difference. And very rarely, unless there's a serious life change, very rarely somebody would buy a house in 2022 and sell it in 2023. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It happens, but not on a regular basis. So you're going to have to sit in your home for 3 or 4 years just to recover your closing cost, which is about 8%, 7 to 8%, depending on how you flush it.
Kevin Yancey says the 2024 Republican Party runs through Florida. DeSantis is if you look on paper, he's a strong candidate, for sure. Multiple people are putting on the feed that Trump and his announcement on Wednesday evening certainly impacted poll engagement yesterday.
Yeah, well,
I see that on multiple pages.
Yeah, so
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so it was it an anti-him vote?
I think he
turned it from the economy stupid to something else.
I think Trump has, you love him, you hate him, you know he's there. And when you know he's there, you get a lot of people watching and tuning in real time, or the highlights or the clips or whatever you want to call it.
Why is that?
I mean, he's one of the most recognized brands in America. He's divisive. He's polarizing,
yeah.
and those qualities or elements generate engagement. And had Trump not have made the announcement perhaps on Wednesday evening, some of the folks that were disenchanted about going to the polls perhaps perhaps ended up going to the polls, and otherwise they would have stayed home if he hadn't have made that announcement. And I think that's a fair statement to make. Now, to Keith's point, and I think if you're watching the show, what Keith said at the beginning of the program, I 1,000% agree with. I think now we're going to be watching what Trump's announcement is on November 15th.
It's all going to be about the next 2 years.
Which is going to be in 6 days. Yeah. And if he announces that he's running for president, which a lot of people think he will, and perhaps he's doing that to sidestep some legal brouhaha or some potential legal issues on the horizon, maybe that's also one of his motives to run, that if that announcement comes, like a lot of people are expecting on the 15th, then it's going to be about the presidential race.
Yeah,
that'll be the storyline.
Yeah, I think it's there regardless if he announces or not.
But the storyline is way more magnified if he's in the race.
Yeah,
it becomes way more part of the cycle.
Yeah,
of news.
right. I'm a newbie to this, right? I've only been doing this for 3.5 years, right? So, but what's the famous saying in the, if it bleeds, it leads, right? If it's outrageous, people watch it, people click on it. I was watching, what was it? It was 60 Minutes on Sunday. They did a piece about the anger in America, and they were talking about Twitter and all these different platforms, which we're on, right? We use as for good, I think, for good. But they were talking about that. What they did is they did a straight up article, something from, I think it was AP or something like that, that got like 2,000 likes or some amount of numbers like that. And then they took that same article and kind of
changed the headline, made it more clickbait,
that's
more emotional.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it got like 200.
Right, of course.
Some obscene number. So we kind of do this to ourselves to a certain extent, right?
And think about this, and Judah, this could be a perfect time to weave you in here. When is the last time we've talked Ukraine war? When's the last time you guys, viewers and listeners, have seen the Ukrainian war with Russia dominate the news cycle? It's been a long time, right?
Yeah. So
the Ukrainian war got trumped by raising rates. And inflation.
That's the economy stupid
and
statement,
the economy,
right? That's the economy stupid comment on it, and it's an interesting.
And now the government's about to trump the economy issue.
Yeah, so look, I'm trying to bring it focused back into real estate and what is that going to mean and how is that going to move forward on it. And I think if the Republicans take the House, I think certain rules might be loosened. That might be good or bad. Right, particularly around the way the Feds, FHA and all these kind of things, that may ease up a little bit. Again, I don't know if that's good or bad. We sure as hell don't want it in 2008, because all we got to do is take a look at the depreciation of 11% between 9 and 10, and 9% between 8 and 9, which is right in the middle of it. So we know, that wasn't a good thing. So regulatory oversight for appraisers and so forth in the banking industry is a good thing, but you're going to, I think if the House takes over, I think you're going to see some flexibility on that. And I was thinking about this morning on what we should talk about, and my gut is telling me nothing that happened last night is going to happen in the and I want you to push back on this, please. I don't think anything that has happened last night or is about ready to happen is going to help the inventory question, because the buyer pool is still there. If we're still pushing pendings out at these numbers, that means the buyers are in the market. We don't.
Problem is inventory. The problem is, how can you get?
And at one point we banned that.
How can you get the builders building again? The builders have stopped building.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah. So that's.
I will leave.
Real estate agents got to figure that out.
I will leave names of companies out,
sure,
because I don't want to do that or anything. But I'm being told by some major companies, construction companies, that they don't want to close this year. They want to close next year because they don't want to book more losses on the books for this year, because they're losing across the board. Regardless of the
size,
product, product type, the home, they're
size
losing.
Of builder.
Which, if anybody's been in the trades in this business long enough, knows generally around November and December, the big builders, right, start pushing because they want to close by the end of this year, so to get these sales on the books to make the bottom line look better. So they're literally, and this is multiple. This is not small custom builders. These are bigger firms that I'm talking to. They're like, yeah. We want to. What do we need to do to push this off to 2023? Because they don't want to book more losses, because some of them are publicly traded, some of them are not, but they don't want to put that on there. I've been doing this for 35 years. That's the first time I've ever heard that. So that's a huge indicator that they're slowing down. They're not putting stuff in the ground.
So what do you do? How do you get them back? I mean, is it tax break? Is that the tax break that helps the builder get back in the market? Is it obviously getting rates a little bit more in control? But you're telling me that the buyers are there. You're saying the buyers are buying regardless of rates. That's what you're saying. The problem's the inventory.
Look, we've got a big surge.
You're humming.
In October. I'm looking at pendings. Pendings are kind of staying somewhat the same. I'm not seeing these huge, going from 80 week over week to 20, right? There are a few percentage points up and down, but there's deals being made and happening on all that stuff. So again, there's two things we're not supposed to talk about: inventory and this other thing about dating and marrying. We won't talk about that on it. But I think buyers are going, okay, I'm going to buy now. I'm going to buy and hold. Again, the sentiment, and I agree with your comment that you made when I said it the other day, that first-time home buyers, they're asked at closing table how long they intend to stay, and it's up to 18 years. That's just not.
It's nuts.
But it's not realistic, right? It's probably closer to 10 in reality, and we'll know in April or May when they actually National Association of Realtors comes out with the actual stats on that end of it. This is what buyers are saying. That doesn't mean that's what they're gonna do. But it's the media. It's what the experience of what's going on. But we're competing against multiple offers in every price range. It's all about location, price, features, and condition. So how is the inventory going to pop up? And I thought I knew the answer to it, but I don't think I do, to be honest with you.
Good question from Sam here. Is any locality experiencing building right now, Keith? Really? Oh. Saying no over here.
So, I'm sorry, I shook my head. Sorry.
Nowhere?
So we have to define building, right? So are we defining building as new developments coming out of the ground, right? So there's a path here. So are we talking about new projects going in the works that are not approved yet? Are we talking about building? Or we're talking about building on existing lots? The building on existing lots will continue, right? But then there's going to be a saturation point that if there's not backstopped with more lot inventory, then that's just going to come to a screeching halt. So some of these builders, these large builders, they're playing this absorption game, right? They're playing, okay, if I build, instead of building 200 units or 300 units, in 2023 like I did in 2021 and 2022. I'm going to build 200. What does that look like to the bottom line? So they'll start ramping back their production on the end of it. I'm working on putting have Stanley Martin come in here and then a custom builder come in here, because they're very two different paths, right?
Yeah.
Some of the custom guys are starting to also lose contracts now. And
I've heard.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right?
Especially a big thing with the custom guys, because the custom guys
that's a huge thing.
Have the opportunity cost of their time. So if they go into, let's call it a baseball game with a customer, and they get into like the second or third inning, which is kind of the design phase, and everything's been spec'd out and presented, and you're pretty much getting to signing the contract, and those contracts don't happen, these smaller teams don't really have the economies of scale of labor, where getting into the second or third inning doesn't sting them.
Well, the big teams have the same thing, because I'm telling you, you're going to start seeing...
Oh, I know they do, but I'm saying it's impacting the smaller guy.
Very much so.
Like the smaller guy that, I know.
I'm raising my hand.
You guys have so much more hand-holding.
Been there, done this.
I mean, how much time goes into the meetings and then a spec sheet?
Hours.
Right?
Hours and hours and
like
hours.
Days, right?
Yeah. So, much like the conversation we were having about when the middle or the beginning of the pandemic and materials were going through the roof. Remember that whole phase? My advice to many builders that were calling me, custom, make sure you write acceleration and de-acceleration clauses into your contract. The custom guys
He's talking with the COGS, the cost of goods.
Cost of goods, right. Yeah. So if it goes up over 5% or below 5%, that kind of thing. The conversation I'm having with them now is, you better write in your front end, if you get out over a design fee, there's a penalty. At some point, your deposit's in jeopardy. Now, 10% of $1 million.
It's hard to do that, though. It's hard to do, say the deposit is now ours.
Yes, because the buyer...
It builds some ill will.
Well, you also want to get paid for the work that you've done, right? So normally the way I used to do it way back when because believe me, I've lived through multiple versions of this.
I know you have,
and did business. Look, it was always we had in our contract, so many hours for and we kept track of our man hours, right, or our person hours. Mm-hmm. We were going to work on it, and we deducted from the deposit, and whatever was left, we gave them back. But I don't think I've ever told you the story, but so back in 2006 and 7, and before 5 and 6, and before 7 and 8 came around, what was common back in those days for custom guys is Jerry would be out in California and would say, hey, we're going to buy this lot, we're going to build this custom house, and we go through it, and I get a 10% down payment, and I use part of my multi-million-dollar line of credit, I build it, when it's done, I give you a check, all the way around, you give me a check, I give you a set of keys, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this hiccup happened, and the reason I know it always comes out from West, I had 2 lawyers out West do $750,000 bills. This was back in 2007, moving into 8. So
big time.
Just never showed up for closing. And demanded their money back and threatened to sue me if I didn't give the deposit back. So I gave them the deposit back because I couldn't, the amount of money I was going to use to fight them. And oh, by the way, then once it's under some sort of suit, I can't sell it to Judah. It's now it's under the, there's a legal term for it, which is...
that's a mess.
Which is, yeah. We ended up selling those for about $350,000.
And
about
what was
a year.
Your cost on that?
Oh, 700, 650, 700. I'd have to look back. But we took a bath. Plus, we had to carry it for a year before we sold it, which was always the risk of doing that type of thing. But when it's humming, it's humming. And that had nothing to do with the development side of things. This was on the building side of the company. So the point I'm trying to make is these small builders, they're going to start contracting.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to start contracting. Everybody's going to say, okay, let's see what's going to happen with the market. the custom guy, the custom builder really isn't helping the inventory conversation that much, right? It's
Unless the custom builder owns a lot or two.
then that's a different story, right?
You know, there's varying degrees of developer. I would say a custom builder that has a handful. I mean, is that a developer there? I mean,
yeah, sure.
it's a
A developer is if you take a raw piece of land and
Yeah.
turn it into multiple lots, you're a developer. There's different levels of it,
That's
right?
what I mean.
But I was just looking at it from a perspective that most custom homes are not inventory to sell. They're custom homes for Keith and Yonna Smith, right? And I intend to stay in that house for X number of years
Yeah.
before I sell it. Whereas some of the larger developers and builders, they're generating hundreds and hundreds of lot inventory, which then we can sell to Judah. That make sense?
Makes sense. Perfect sense.
Almost sound like I know what I'm talking about.
You do. It's like you've done this before.
I've been.
It's like you have 35 years of experience.
I actually got a T-shirt somewhere.
Ray Cadell watching the show. Ray, we love when you watch the
Ray.
show.
What part of the world is he in now?
He reached out to me and he said, I'm on the road a lot playing music around this time of
Yeah.
year, but he's always listening.
Yeah, I follow him on
Always listening,
Facebook.
that's what he said.
That man is on the road, and I'll tell you, that's a success story of doing what you needed to do to get through COVID, and he's back 110% now.
Yeah, he's the man. He's the man. Here's his comment here. Keith and Jerry, it's time for your trusted real estate advisor to make sure she is well-versed in alternative mortgage programs.
Oh,
Those of us more mature brokers remember 321, 2-1 buy-downs, etc. Even GPMs with built-in negative amortizations and schedules. Keith and Nar hit the nail on the head. 68% of transactions are lifestyle related. I call it moving up, down, and sideways. That might slow down some, but it is not going anywhere, and we have to show folks how to accomplish what they need.
so Judah, in my what was the guy that used to say in my formerly nicotine-stained hands? What was the radio guy? Rush Limbaugh.
Okay.
If you could take a look at that Market Watch, I'm actually been reading an article I pulled off this morning, how buying tactic from the 70s, 80s is seeing a revival. This is this 2-1, 2-2, 2-3-1. There's all those different versions of it. And thank you very much, Ray, for chiming in. Scott couldn't be with us today. He's in Richmond. I really wanted to have Scott chime in on that. So if there's any loan officers that are watching or listening right now, that chime in on it. But I'm literally doing 2 deals right now, 2-1 deals.
Explain that.
Yeah. So make a very. So I played a guy on
What are you seeing? A lot of 3-2-1s advertised.
3-2-1s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thank you, Woody. There's 2 3-2-1s. To make a long story short, there are reduced interest rates for a certain period of time. It's either 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year. What happens is we negotiate with the seller to go ahead and pay it as a selling closing cost, as a seller concession on that end of it. So it don't really come out of the pocket of the buyer at the moment. We're asking the seller to go ahead and pay that in a form of a seller concession. And the short version of it is, if it's a 3-2-1, the first year it's down by three points over whatever the mortgage is. Second year is 2, third year is 1. Fourth year goes back to the original rate. So I think the theory behind that, and I have to tell you, Ray's 1,000%. My first house I bought in '88 was a 3-2-1 because I was at 18%, but I was actually 3% less my first year. We saved up some money over the course of 3 years, and I actually refinanced it within 3 years. I think down to a whopping 8% or 9%, if I remember correctly. It was a huge, and that time was a huge jump down. But thank you, Ray. I'm literally got it holding this in my hand, an article from Market Watch on the benefits of that. And that's to Ray's point, that's what we as trusted advisors need to start talking and having conversations. Okay, what are your options? Because 68% of the folks out there got to buy, right? Or they got to do something. And what are we here to help them with? So thank you very much.
You got Phyllis with this question. How many cash deals are happening with rates going higher? Is he seeing an uptick in all cash?
So I can only speak.
question.
Yeah, I only can speak in my little world, and in order for me to go ahead and I can quickly take a look at the 65 that sold in the last 7 days. In our world, the 600, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 price point has at least recently seems to have a lot of cash buyers in it. Upper ends, we have not done a lot of them recently. The lower end are mostly financed, right? Or the entry level, for lack of a better term, but on the lower end of the scale on sales price. So it's a kind of this sweet spot area that there is quite a few cash in there. But I'd have to take a look at it in the recently sold.
Good question right there. Keep the questions coming. We'll happily relay them live on air. The follow-up question for her, and I think you just touched on it, how is the luxury, or as you guys call it, the jumbo market performing?
Yeah, so part of the struggle with that is defining what that number is, right? To me, I think it's 750 and up. Some people say it's $1 million and up, right? But it's getting a little softer. I haven't dissected those numbers in great detail, so I don't want to kind of overspeak or misquote any numbers. It's definitely slowing down. It historically slows down when interest rates get to this point, because typically look, back to the 68%, right? Typically, those buyers are not part of the 68%. They don't have to buy. So to Ray's point, and I'll ask Ray this if he's able to chime in on it. One of the first things we try to ascertain as an agent, at least I do, from a buyer and a seller. If I'm representing a seller, we try to determine what their motivation is. What is their reasoning for moving? And I usually start there. The same thing on the buyer side. So why do you have to do this?
Why are you selling?
Why are we here? Why are you buying and why are you selling? And that drives the conversation, and that drives, the path of how we can help somebody. Because at the end of the day, this is all about relationship building. Mm-hmm. I can tell you this, and I know Ray does quite a few first-time home buyers, and according to NAR, they've dropped year over year considerably as far as the volume of buyers go on the end of it. But I just had a conversation yesterday with a first-time home buyer that their rent wasn't going up next year. Their landlord wasn't selling their house. This was one of the ones we were talking about the other day. It flipped with the seller. Maybe he watched the show and decided to hold on to it on the landlord. And my advice to them was to hold tight, build some cash reserves, meet with Scott Morris, which is what they did.
Ross Mortgage.
And figure out a path forward. And, inventory, I think inventory is just going to stay the way inventory is for a very long period of time. Anemic. And the question is, what will rates do in the next 12 months? But if they didn't have to buy and they could build their cash reserves up a little bit, then, that was my advice to them. Because if they would have bought...
Because we're back to 20% down payments here.
Well, in their case, so it's their...
Are we back there?
No, not necessarily, no.
You're seeing a lot of...
Yeah, it's not necessarily the case. It's increasing. It used to be none, right? Because why would you put 20% or 12%?
When the rate's 2%.
When the rate's 2%, that's free money.
But when the rate's 7.5%.
Yeah, those who can put, but that's who the...
And also, it's gotten a little bit more competitive with offers now.
So back on this first-time homebuyer, when we sat down at their kitchen table and went over their budgets and went over everything that they were trying to do, they would have overpaid for what they wanted to buy and would have stretched themselves a little too thin. And I said, look, unless you're...
That was the commenter on Monday.
Unless your landlord is raising 10 or, some huge number, which they said they weren't, I think maybe you ought to sit tight for a year and raise we'll keep an eye on the market. But Ray will jump in here. I've been doing this for 35 years. This last couple of years of having a potential buyer and finding them something very quickly is not the norm. Normally, sometimes we work with buyers for years before they find what they're looking for. That's the norm. At least it was the norm. The last couple of years, or you almost want to throw it out. We're doing budgets this afternoon, and I'm actually going to put. And I always shoot low in my sales volume because that's just the way I operate. But I'm actually going to use my 19 gross volume number, then try to grow on my 2022, which has been off the charts. It's just such an anomaly, 21 and 22, that I feel this is more like an 18, 19.
So what are you going to go, 5% up on 19 for gross volume?
Oh, no, 10.
10?
Close, though. Yeah,
okay.
10%. Yeah, I think 10%.
So you're saying 2023, your business model projection for gross sales volume is a 10%
over
uptick
19. Over
on
19.
19.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is.
And you think it's attainable?
Oh, yeah. Well, look,
I mean, you're a confident guy.
Yeah.
You think, is it a conservative projection? Or is it aggressive? How's that? That's a better question.
I would say it's
I'd say that's fairly aggressive.
I would say it's aggressive.
Because 19 rates were at, you have it in front of you.
I don't have my rates in front of me.
What were rates at 19? 5?
4 or 5%, something like that. Yeah.
So we're talking 2 points plus next year.
Yeah.
Than 19.
Yeah.
And less inventory. Less inventory next year.
Yeah, I have to go look back at the 19 inventory. I think we're probably closer to the 19 inventory.
You think?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we're.
Below
but I don't have that data.
Or higher?
Excuse me? No, I think, within a few percentage points. This is going to look more like an 18, 19 volume of sales and so forth and so on and that kind of thing. Prices will be way higher, right? That the median sales prices will be above 18 and 19. But I think as far as a volume goes,
that's a good point.
I think you'll be closer to 18 or 19. Like I said,
What's the uptick in values 19 versus 2023, you think? 35%? 40%?
I can tell you.
So I guess
2000 exactly in Albemarle County, because I broke it down in 5, 10, and 15 years. So Albemarle County, single family detached, no new construction, right? Year over year. In 2018, so that's 2022 through 2018 was a 6.6% average appreciation year over year. But that included a 13% in 21, 19, 9. Then we had a 13, 9, 9. We were flat.
What's the median number? 19's median sales number. Actual dollar versus 20.
18 or 19, because I'm talking 18.
Okay, go 18 versus 2022.
425.
18 was 425, 425,000?
Yep. Median sales price, single family detached.
So 2018 median sales price, Albemarle County was what?
Hold on a second. 425.
425. And now?
472.
I mean, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot.
It's 31%, according to my calculations. No, it's 31% over. So I apologize. So I did 2021, which is 505. So that's 31%. But in any event, we're double digits, and that's just not normal. I think we're going to be back in a sales volume of 18 and 19. I think we're going to be running about somewhere between 3 to 4%. And I was very reluctant to have this percentage conversation.
Why?
Because we're in 2020 and 21, in 2022, or first half of 2022, second half of 2022 did the O shift, right? Or the last 4 to 6 months was so outside the norm, it's hard to calculate against it. Those years it didn't matter where you were, you got top dollar. Now, location matters, right? We've been calling this for a while on the show, the micro location, right? It's one side of Lake Monticello is different than the other side of Lake Monticello. So when you group everything together on the Lake Monticello, much like Todd taught me in Nelson County, right, by pulling out Wintergreen, which I did not do, which was a great catch, and thank you again for doing that.
Todd Rath.
On that end of it.
Blue Toad Hard Cider.
So you have to kind of look from, this numbers I'm throwing out for Albemarle County is all of Albemarle County. If you this took me a whole day yesterday to put together because I can't do it on car. I actually have to manually do these numbers. But if you broke it down from Crozet and Earlysville and Schuyler, right? They're all going to be different numbers and different percentages. Again, this is why you hire somebody like Ray Cadell, who's a trusted advisor who understands this, who's been through this for a while, and understands the impacts of what one market or one neighborhood or one area is over the other.
Keith Smith, Real Talk with Keith Smith, dropping knowledge here. Folks are asking about Augusta County and if construction's still happening there.
Yeah, I think Augusta County. The answer is yes, because I think. So generally, what happens once it's in the development phase, they're just not going to stop. And there's a lot of projects in Augusta County that's already been started, right? Dirt's starting to get pushed. Once that ball starts rolling, they're not going to stop. It's for two reasons. One is they're committed.
Yeah.
And the second is they're betting on the market changing in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, I will tell you, they'll slow the tempo down a little bit. They'll slow things down as far as the development side and the construction side of it. But you will, it's the price point, right? You'll see the other side of the mountain, do well, I think.
How's Spencer? Is remodeling still, as Jerry says, on fire?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking on the way in, with this Facebook laying off 11,000 folks in Meta.
Everybody is.
And it seems to be focused, and you know more about this than I ever will. It seems to be focused in the tech side of things. Is that a fair statement? The large numbers
Tech
anyway?
is getting hit hard. Kevin Yancey says this. Explain how you can project an inventory shortage for 2023, but forecast double-digit sales increases for 2023 versus 2018. Well, you got to realize that they're closing deals at higher price points. So even if they sell less volume, the transactions are happening at higher price points.
That's exactly
versus
right.
2018. So you can conceivably have less closes and still do more sales dollars.
So 18 was 425, 472 for this year. So even if it stays flat, our average sales price
It's higher.
is considerably higher than it was at that point. So
Yeah. So if the inventory is flat or even slightly down a few units, you'll surpass.
Correct. My volume does not have to be as strong as it was in 18.
4 years ago.
As 4 years ago, but our revenue will probably be up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's two sides to the coin, right?
Which is the same output, which means you make some more money.
Well, we do well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We do well. We do well.
Woody says jumbo is still jumbo, still doing well.
Yeah.
That his wealth management clients are busy with the jumbo market.
Yeah, and Woody would know that way more than I'm excited about. I can't remember what day he's coming in, but it's another Monday. I think it's the third Monday of this month that he's coming in, and he and I were texting, and he's crunching some pretty awesome numbers. And I'm an amateur at this stuff. He's absolutely
a pro.
He's a pro on that end of it. But yeah, so other than just to talk about the dollar volume, other than 2014 to 15, every year it's gone up. 2000 and
I mean, that's a good sign, man.
Yeah.
That's a great sign for real estate around here.
That's over 8 years of appreciation going up, going flat up. And again, out of 20 years, only 4 of those, and this is Albemarle County, very laser focused, right? Very laser focused on a product. It's
a great stat, though.
A big throw up, if you want, on the county, right? Because if you pick it apart into different areas, the numbers are could be very different. But as a whole, we've only had 4 years go negative in 20 years, year over year. I don't see that changing much. We're unless you've got a repeat of '08, and I think we all agree that's not gonna happen.
I agree. CPI number tomorrow at 10 a.m. That's an important number. Consumer Price Index. When that number is released, we'll get a good feel on whether inflation is starting to crescendo, if you may, or plateau. That number goes a long way in determining a dovish or hawkish Fed. So let's follow that number tomorrow. We will follow the Senate, which is not going to be determined anytime soon.
Yeah.
CNN is currently projecting 48-48 in the Senate with 4 seats to go.
That hasn't changed in hours.
Has not changed in hours. I wouldn't expect it to. You're exactly right, Keith Smith. So time will tell, my friend.
Yeah, so it's, again, I said earlier, I was hoping that we would have a clearer path, but we don't. I don't think anybody on this set is surprised that we don't have a clear path, just again, a shout out to Ray Cadell for bringing up this brushing off this whole buy down thing from the 70s and the 80s. I think you're going to start seeing more creative. As this article says, the bell bottoms are back. So maybe if you literally, if you read if you read the article, that's what they're referring it to.
Let's hope not.
Is the bell bottoms.
Last thing I want to see is Judah walking in here with some bell bottoms on over here.
Actually, I think it'd look well on Judah. Judah, you pull off a pair of bell bottoms.
Judah could pull off bell bottoms. Great question from Brian. You guys talked a few weeks ago about the return of the adjustable rate mortgage. Is Keith still seeing a lot of ARMs out there? Great question.
So it's a great question, but if you read this article from Market Watch, it seems that these buy downs are starting to overtake
the ARMs.
The ARMs, right? They're a little bit more creative. The big difference is, again, I'll see if I can post this on a Facebook feed from Market Watch on it. The big difference between an ARM and a buy down is the buy down, once you hit that 3-year mark or whatever it is, you're fixed for whatever rate that was when you started. The ARM, not so much.
Right.
And that's the risk.
Security.
That's the risk, and that's where buyers are starting to move over to that direction. It gives them the ability to buy, and then also gives them the ability to potentially save some money over the course of several years for the refi expense.
Kevin Yancey wants you, and I just tagged in the post there, Judah, to wear bell bottoms and a ponytail. The hair's getting long enough potentially for a ponytail. Maybe he'll grace us with, do you have bell bottoms?
Hold on, let's see.
Try to weave them.
I used to have a great pair of maroon
corduroys, absolutely,
corduroy
yeah.
bell bottoms.
Yeah, man. Wish when you walked.
Yeah, I don't know if I still have them. I might. I'd have to find them.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Wear them to the show.
I bet you we can Amazon them a couple of pairs.
Is it the 400th show we have coming up?
So I've got 3 notes here to talk about.
400th show. Judah, stay on camera here.
December 2nd.
Okay.
Is the 400th show. I almost brought in a bar of butter today.
A bar of butter. Wow. Are we going to wear costumes?
Yeah. So I want to throw out to the folks that are listening.
Multiple people putting butter in the feed as we speak. Wow.
What costume?
We're getting branded with butter.
What costume should we wear? What do they think we should be doing for the show? But I would be remiss not to mention 2 other things. So to my fellow Marines out there, happy birthday tomorrow, Semper Fi. DM me, please, just so we can wish each other happy birthday. And then on Friday is Veterans Day.
Ooh.
So my idea for Friday is if any veterans are watching, please DM, what branch you were in, what years of service, what your MOS, what your job was. And you know, what was your biggest takeaway from being in the service, and how did it help you for realtors to be a good real estate agent or whatever you're doing in life? What did it do to help you move things along in life?
I'll give a shout out to 3 of my favorite service people that watch and listen to the show: Lee Elberson,
Yep.
a Marine; Bellamy Brown, a Marine; and Paul McCarter, Air Force.
Air Force, yeah.
So shout out
Kerry Rock, Army.
Kerry Rock, Army. Shout out to you, Nikki Chambliss,
Air Force.
Air Force. Any you want to throw in the mix that you can think of that have come on the show or regularly watch the show, interact with the show? We appreciate all our service people.
Friday, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk butter, apparently, and service folks. We want to. I don't think we've ever had a Veterans Day land on a Friday for the show, so I want to take some time and wave the flag and say thank you to our service folks.
We salute Keith Smith for his
I
service.
thought you would have said your first favorite Marine was me, but
A
that's
Marine,
okay.
Keith Smith. Kevin Yancey says he's U.S. Army.
Army, that's right,
82 to 85.
That's right.
Salute to Kevin Yancey. Friday, we honor all veterans. In fact, on this set and on all our talk shows, we honor veterans all the time.
We surely do.
All the time.
So the big thing is what were your branch? What was your years of service? What was your job? If you want to shout that out, if you can't tell us because you have to kill us, we don't want to know, right? But and then what skill and what life skill did you learn in the service that helped you out moving along?
How's Yonna, the beautiful 7'8"?
Mrs. Smith is doing great. It's funny. My fellow Marines are going to be really pissed at me.
Oh.
So my wife loves the Marine Corps probably more than I do, if there's such a thing possible. And I inverted Veterans Day and Marine Corps birthday. So yeah, it's on the 11th. She goes, "You idiot, it's on the 10th." And I went, "Oh, that's right."
She didn't call you an idiot.
Yeah, actually she did.
Oh.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she goes, yeah, she pretty much said, "You're an idiot." But so it's our birthday tomorrow. Normally the tradition, I don't know if you ever told you, there's a Marine Corps ball that if you're in the embassies, that this was the event of the year. And just imagine there's 5 or 6 jarheads, Marines, not over the rank of sergeant, have to put together a ball.
Sounds fun. I would be there.
That has all the ambassadors.
Oh.
It has the prime minister typically of the country or whatever. In the Soviet Union we didn't, or in the East Bloc we didn't. But it had all the French and English, had all the Western ambassadors there, and that whole protocol. Just a bunch of jarheads putting that together. And needless to say, it's funny. You can do all that protocol, but once alcohol gets in the middle of it, everybody's the same.
You know what? We should ask Keith the question from the show, Judah, yesterday. In the last 5 years, Albemarle County, City of Charlottesville, what has been the most impactful economic development initiative? Last 5 years, City of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Can you name or even come up with one economic development initiative, the most impactful one?
So are we defining economic?
I mean, economic.
Because I think development is many people will disagree with me.
I think development's economic development.
Okay.
Yeah. Albemarle and City of Charlottesville. Development, undoubtedly. Stonefield and Fifth Street Station were before 5 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Neither one is within the 5-year window.
But I was speaking of residential development. Some folks think that
Okay, what residential then?
Well, the projects that started in the
North Point.
Yeah, but that started like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great
Job recruitment, big firm coming to the area.
So I think
We couldn't come up with one.
I think
Alex Erpy was here too.
and Alex couldn't come up with
No,
one.
think about it.
So
This is what I do for a living. Could not come up with one.
So
City of Charlottesville, Albemarle County.
yeah, so I think Willow Tree would be one.
That was not within 5 years.
When did Willow Tree move over there?
Longer than 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
No.
Willow Tree. I'm thinking the techie stuff right
Yeah.
now. That's all been more than 5 years.
Yeah.
Because
Can you look at that, June?
I feel like Willow Tree might have been right at the edge of 5 years.
It was close. We should figure.
Right at the
I'm
edge
gonna
of
go to
5
their
years. And
website
then
here.
Apex.
Apex is a good one.
That was within 5 years.
Was that economic development attracted by the county or the city?
I'm just thinking about economic development. Well,
that's my key.
yeah,
is
yeah,
what economic development is Albemarle
it's-
County or the city of Charlottesville?
So
done?
it's funny that you should bring this up, and our chemistry is working a little bit. I'm actually working on a series of shows in January, bringing in economic development directors, because in the beginning of the year, we're going to kind of go into bringing, remember for a while we did bringing elected officials in and so forth and so on, so we're going to do a series of shows doing that way, but at economic development. So in other words, the Flavanna and Louisa, since they're closely together.
Yeah.
Albemarle and Charlottesville, and they, Greene and Nelson, or Greene and Albemarle, and say, okay, so what's going on? Because, to your point, how, I think the point you're trying to make here is how can we move the needle away from residential rooftops to something else, right? And
That's my point.
these are the people in the front lines of that. So I'm just thinking about what
I mean, think about it. Major business
data code. I would
code on the downtown mall.
code. I'm just thinking high tech code. And again, I can't tell you if that just happened because the market happened. I don't think the city of Charlottesville said we're giving you this huge.
That's
tax
what I'm
break.
saying.
Yeah.
Driven by the government.
Yeah. I
Driven
don't-
by economic development.
Yeah. I can't.
Joffrey, his
Well-
vision for code or his plan to do something like code has been in his mind for a while.
So
and he
if-
had the capital to do it.
Sure. If Willow Tree was in 5 years, there was some direct connect between
That's not a bad one.
between Albemarle
Albemarle County recruiting them with some tax credits.
Yeah. That would be a direct connect into that. And I don't know about code. I
would not say that would be
think
the
there
case.
was any incentive
No.
there. There may have been something with Apex, but again, I'm not sure.
Apex is a good one.
And then the co-construct is still here. We also had a pandemic right in the middle of that 5 years that nobody was doing anything as far as economic development goes. Not, so you need to calculate that into your metrics of your thinking. So did anybody double check Willow Tree? Am I
I'm
close?
trying to.
On that end of it?
Looks like 2018. So kind of right on the cusp here.
I'll call 2018.
We'll invest. Yeah.
So I know that.
We're looking at right at the cusp of 5 years right
Yeah.
there.
Look, I'm going to let the economic development people defend themselves. I've been doing this stop saying it. I've been doing this
35 years?
I won't say it anymore. Because that's the other thing Yonna said. You say that too much. But I've been doing it for a while. I have found that the market tends to outperform economic development departments. The market will move much quicker than they do. I can tell you in my own home county, and I can't quote it verbatim, there are a couple of things that came along that were initiated by Flavanna Economic Development just recently, which I just can't quote them chapter and verse. So some of that came along, and that would have been a great question to ask Jesse. Because I think
was it Brian Rothmel?
Yeah, but he went
left
to Culpeper,
Culpeper.
and he's rocking the world.
Oh,
over
dude.
there.
Bulldog.
He's an awesome dude to start with. Comes from an awesome family, but yeah. So I mean that's an interesting thing. I mean somebody could pull up the economic development
Because if
page.
you think about this, and to your point, and I'm responding to people at Chen.
Okay.
Gentrification.
So somebody could pull up the economic development. If Neil,
To your point, there was COVID. And Kevin, I get that point too. There was COVID where 24 months, the government pretty much did nothing. But one
well,
thing to highlight,
it didn't do nothing. It
You
just
know,
didn't do anything for economic development.
the collateral damage of 24 months of not prioritizing economic development is more of a priority on rooftop taxes, more gentrification.
So I'm looking.
That's a cause and effect.
Yeah, I'm looking up the EDA, Economic Development Authority for Fulvana County, just to see, what projects they have on their books, and I'm kind of sorry to say their website is not very interactive. Geez, I wonder why. Got the wrong people running it for them. Hey, so I got it. Firefly.
Firefly?
Yeah, broadband. Right? So
Yeah, I'd say that's economic development.
right?
I'll give you that.
Yeah, broadband. That there was a I should know this. I'm on the
there
Planning
you go.
District Commission.
That-
Right?
that counts.
So
That
yeah,
counts.
yeah. So that was a partnership, a technically a PPEA, public-private. They call it a Public-Private Education Act, but education really is not part of the mission any longer. So it would be,
That's a good one.
that brought all the counties together, brought the planning departments together, brought the economic development departments together
That's a good one.
with that. So if we would, I think one can say broadband in our region is a huge economic boost.
Yeah. Good call. Props to you.
Look at that,
Give me a
huh?
little bit of love. That's
Look-
a good one. That wasn't come up. And that's one where it's not so obvious, like bringing a massive firm here or like some
Yeah, but
tax incentives to
that's
build.
a setup for it, though.
That's the infrastructure. That's the
That's
infrastructure.
the setup for
Yeah,
it, right?
that's a good call.
And then, so
That's well said.
Fulvana County, if it ever finishes it after 30 some odd years,
But you don't have the water, right?
that's what I was going to.
Yeah.
Technically, water is flowing in Zion's Crossroads, but it's a very limited amount from the Department of Justice or DOJ, Department of Jails, right? Is that what it's called? No, hold it. DOC, Department of Correction, over there. So they're taking a limit on it, but they've got a backbone going from the women's prison up to Zion's Crossroads to a tank. They're waiting on the 400,000 gallons of water a day. And to put that into perspective, as volume, Lake Monticello uses about 500,000 gallons. So,
Yeah.
so that's a huge amount of development that could happen, economic development. But right now they have like 100,000, 120,000, which is nothing.
I mean, you can make a strong argument that the most critical aspect to economic development in Fluvanna County is the water
Oh, without doubt. Two things,
and the density of people to support the development.
three things. And I can speak with absolute authority to this. We, for many decades, our first word was no. We, meaning Fulvana County. That has changed. On housing, it's not changed, but commercial, well, maybe it's gone back. Yeah. But I can tell you, as far as commercial goes, that's a yes for the most part.
Where?
In Fulvana County, in Fulvana County, but if it's got rooftops attached to it, it's probably a no. But I'll tell you, I do a fair amount of commercial,
I know you do. I'm seeing a lot more in Louisa.
and it's always been and always will. They kind of get it, they understand it. The reality of it
I
is,
mean, granted, they have the exit. They have 64.
but they're up against the same wall as Fulvana right now, as far as water goes. They've capped their capacity. So they can't really grow until they get this water in which they're super aggressive. I mean, they are aggressive to go ahead and make that happen. But look,
Excuse me.
Gesundheit,
Thank you.
strawberry.
Yeah.
Right. For the longest time on this show, I was high about Science Crossroads.
You still are.
It's a number 2 position next to Green. I really think Green is taking a very forward-leaning position on economic development, and then another potential huge positive. They took years to go through the legal process to get their own water authority back. So now they control their own destiny. I can speak English.
Destiny.
Yeah,
got it?
Yonna made me the other day say the word synonym.
Synonym.
Synonym. So look, I think there's a lot of good positive going on here, but I think what you're looking for is, okay, Keith and Jerry on the economic development for Albemarle County says, hey, Judah, bring your 150 employee, high dollar.
I want to see a company.
Come here.
And we'll throw you some bones on a building.
Yeah.
Or some development.
The one that comes to mind would be
agua, water.
Probably willow tree. Just top of mind.
Willow tree's a good one. Willow tree's a very good one.
So look at that. I got a couple. Look at me.
Well, the best one you got was the you take over here was the internet.
Yeah. But infrastructure is one of the key things that jurisdictions can do to help economic development. If they don't have the infrastructure, they're not going to come here. I also believe rooftops, because what I was starting to say earlier, and my ADD kicked in, but I got it back, is some of the company, Louisa County side has enough water for some big companies that we just outlined, right? They won't come because there's no rooftops, there's no employees. Where are they going to get their employees at to do it? They literally, that's what they say. There's these very simple boxes they need to check, and if they don't check the rooftop, hey Keith, tell me where my I'm just picking a number, 150 employees, that are making $15 to $25 an hour, where are they going to live? Where are they coming from, right? And unless they're directly connected to it, are we going back to the days where Schuyler was a company town, right? Where the company actually built housing for its employees? I don't know.
You were good today.
Yeah,
Seriously,
yeah,
good work.
Yeah, I thank you. I think I started off a little slow, but that was because I went way past my bedtime last night and I needed some coffee to kick in. And I'm really excited about Fridays. I always love not that I don't love every other show, but Fridays always just have that little extra zing and pep to it. And you may or may not have sticks of butter on Friday.
400th show is coming up in December.
Need help, please. Tell us what we should do.
Give us some ideas of what to do.
Other than get off the air.
Judah Wickhauer is the director. The show is archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Keith Smith was quite good today. We will watch the elections very closely.
Has any of it
see
changed?
What transpires. We may have Scott Morris back next Wednesday.
Yeah, you will have him back next Wednesday. He may cover for me. I'm at the Virginia Governor's Housing Conference Wednesday through Friday, and I don't think my first chat isn't until Wednesday afternoon, so I'll probably stay here Wednesday and take a drive up that way. But
Philip
Scott's
Dow,
for sure.
good morning. Real Talk with Keith Smith is back on Friday with Batman and Robin on Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, yeah.
Which we're very excited about.
Please, if you're a veteran, chime in on, branch of service, years of service, your job if you want to tell us without having to kill us, and what was your biggest takeaway from being in the service?
We're back with the I Love CVille show in 50 minutes. Judah, job well done. Keith crushed it today. My name is Jerry Miller, and the show is archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. You guys have a good morning. We'll see you very soon. Very nicely done, Keith.
Thank you for the help. Thank you for navigating us through this. Tough conversations to have.